I'm back with the next part of the Five Nights at Freddy's timeline, and I'm curious to see just how crazy this is gonna get, because it's been pretty wild so far. This dude Afton is pure evil. Take it away, Matt Pat.
Hello, Internet.
What's up?
Welcome to Game Theory and page 20 of our
We were on
final
7
FNAF
last time.
timeline. This is getting ridiculous. Last time we covered William
Did
Afton's
10 decades
rise
of your
as a
life,
serial
bro.
killer.
That's
The loss
crazy.
of his young son in 1983 caused him to make one fateful promise that would ultimately serve as his driving force for
Tragic,
decades.
man.
I will put you back together. Fueled by grief and obsession,
That's
Afton
creepy.
relieves himself in work and drinks. One night in a fit of rage, he lashes out against Henry's young daughter Charlie, his first murder. This moment becomes the first domino to fall in a long sequence of events that ultimately destroys William's life and the lives of those around him. That one murder gives Afton a taste for blood, resulting in the deaths of 10 more children across 2 different pizzerias. Those children go on to possess animatronics, giving Afton
So they
his
do
first
possess
exposure
them,
to
yeah, the
Remnant and a
ghosts.
potential solution for bringing
Remnant?
his son back to
The
life.
heck is
The
Remnant?
need to learn more about this miraculous
bring his son
power
back to
leads him
life.
produce the Funtime animatronics, as well as their capture devices. Robots designed to bring kids to him for experimentation and collection of
forgot
raw
about
remnant.
that.
Except there was one thing that he didn't account for: his daughter's curiosity. He made the robots too appealing, and it would cost him Elizabeth's life.
Right.
Now with 2 children to put back
So the
together,
remnant
Afton
is
was more
like, I guess,
desperate
the
and crazed
souls?
than ever, returning to defunct pizzerias to steal the possessed metal still living inside their walls. What he didn't account for, though, were the ghosts, forcing him to pay for the sins of his
That's right,
past.
man.
When
Time
last
to
we
pay
left
up,
him,
bud.
William was spring-locked, bleeding to death behind a
I don't know
secret
how he
wall.
was
Gone,
surviving for
certainly
3
not
days
forgotten.
while bleeding
That's what we're
out.
about to see in today's video.
But
Today
he
we're
managed.
finishing up chapter 2 of our story, wrapping up the Afton era. Over
Okay,
the next
let's
6
go.
pages, we switch our focus to the other main character of the franchise, Mike, a young boy
Mike.
dealing with the fallout of a stupid
Right,
childhood
right, his
decision
son.
with tragic consequences. A young man whose life is best described as collateral damage.
Is that him when he's
caught in the
older?
blast radius of William's whirlwind of destruction. Now, before we begin, let me just rip off the band-aid now. We won't be finishing the timeline today. I know. I'm sorry.
That's
I
fine.
wanted to, but covering FNAF
I know there's one
VR,
more video.
AR, and Security Breach wound up taking me an additional 9 pages of script. And I've already made you wait long enough for this part, so I just had to make the executive call to break this one up into 2. Don't worry, that part is already written, it is already recorded, it is just in the process of being edited. It
We'll
is
be
an
watching that one
FT
too.
episode. So mark it on your calendar. That one's
Because
actually
I've
gonna be
forgotten
going
to sleep.
live on
Poor
March
guy, dude.
25th. It's also coming complete with a live talk back where we go back over everything from the past couple episodes, as well as having ourselves some very special guests. So overall, that one should be a lot of fun. Fair warning though, the conclusions we've reached that solve Security Breach, they are controversial. I feel good about them. Like, I think that we've
Controversial
locked in
how?
on a lot of the answers here, but they're gonna raise a lot of discussion. Let's just say that you're either gonna love that episode or hate it. I don't really think there's gonna be
I'm
much in between.
not gonna really know,
Anyway,
right? Because
without
I don't
any
know much
further
about the
ado, Let's
timeline.
cover a chunk of the timeline that's a lot less controversial. Let's meet Mike.
What's up, Mike? Chapter 2, the Afton era
William
continued.
still wasn't
Okay.
back. Weird. Michael knew his father sometimes traveled for work, disappearing for days on end, but usually there was some sort of notice, a phone call, a post-it, something. It's not like Michael and his father were close, far from it, but as a household of 2 suffering men coping with years of tragedy and loss, there was at least some element of communication between the 2 of them.
Your dad's
They were
bleeding
united
out,
by
bud.
a name and a shared pain. This time though, things felt different. William had left nothing. His absence was longer. There were no check-ins, no updates, just silence. Something had happened. If there was one thing Michael knew about his father, it was that he had contingencies. Safety checks.
Yeah,
backup
always,
plans. His
dude.
father was a careful and guarded man. He held his cards close to his chest, and as such, William had prepared him in the event that something like this ever happened. Normally, his father kept his home office locked, but in the event of an unexpected, prolonged absence, Michael had been instructed to enter his father's office and look behind an empty set of shelves mounted in the corner of the room. Rolling
What the heck's in there, bro? It's giving me Attack on Titan vibes. Go to the basement, son.
his eyes, Michael entered the office. Never fully understood how William was able to spend so many hours of his days locked up in here. There was just nothing to do. Most of this place was empty. He dragged himself over to the shelf in the corner,
Dude,
expecting
what
to
is gonna
find
be
an
here?
emergency contact list, a family safety deposit box. But what he actually found there was completely unexpected.
Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I found it.
Found
You were
what?
right where you said it would be.
The shelf swung open and revealed a giant industrial elevator, one that led straight
down to
into
his
an underground
lab?
bunker. But that was impossible. Hidden inside his childhood home was a secret entrance to an enormous underground science
What the
lair. It
hell?
didn't make any sense. Seriously,
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
It didn't make any sense.
Oh, it
And yet,
didn't?
here it was, mapped directly underneath the floor plan of the house that he'd grown up in. Lost
How did nobody ever notice that was done? What, weren't they like always at home though? Like they never noticed it was created, or was it made before they moved in? Maybe.
his brother in, been tortured in. Michael thought that he'd known his father, a prideful, sad,
Oh,
angry
true.
man
His
with
father
many
was
everyday
manipulating him. I
problems, but
forgot about
clearly
that
he'd been living
through
with a
noise.
stranger this entire time. His father had secrets. Suddenly, the days of William being locked inside of his office made sense. He'd been here the entire time. Where was here, though? Was this Circus Baby's entertainment and rentals? The Circus Baby restaurant always did seem to be a deeply personal project for father. A failure of his that cut unusually deep, especially after that first location had to be closed prematurely due to the gas leaks. After that day, father really
the
did
gas
seem to
leaks.
change, to lose himself even more.
So
in his
Michael
work.
didn't even know
Clearly,
about the
entrance
didn't
he
know
had
the
found
truth,
was some sort
huh?
of
He
secret
thought it was
back way
gas
into the
leaks too.
facility, one that required crawling through vents to navigate. His father had been working here, but in secret. Why? And that's when he found her. At the end of the facility, Circus Baby. His
Oh,
father's
boy.
pride and joy. Except something was different about
He's gonna
her.
find out
She
that's
wasn't
his
like
sister,
the way
dude.
she talked, the stories she told. This wasn't just a robot. She was alive somehow. And not only was she alive, she also felt familiar.
There it is.
Something bad inside of me. I'm broken. I can't be fixed. Will you help me?
Are these actually sound clips
Sister
from the
William's
game?
baby girl? But how? Why? What was this place? He dug around some old files and found blueprints.
Dr.
outlining the
Frankenstein's
features of
lab.
These animatronics, storage containers, voice mimicking, parental tracking. And was that a child in Freddy's stomach?
he's
Was his
finding out
father
all
collecting
about
and
it, bro.
Experimenting on kids? Were all the rumors that he'd heard throughout his past actually true? That the animatronics came to life at night? That there were murders done in all the pizzerias? That his father had
Dude,
somehow
it's
been the
all
prime
coming together
suspect
for
in
Michael,
all of it?
bro.
Suddenly, Michael's mind flashed back to his persistent nightmares throughout his childhood. Had he been experimented on too? Tears
Dude,
stung
it's-
in his
dude,
eyes.
that
as
is
anger,
heartbreaking for
fear, and
him.
confusion filled his body. His
'Cause, I mean, yo,
father's
not for
secrets
nothing.
were pouring out. William
It wasn't all his fault. Like, yeah, he did that to his brother, but he didn't mean for his brother to die, you know? His father wasn't keeping enough eye on them. Yeah, he had cameras everywhere, but this all comes down to Afton, bro. He wasn't there.
wasn't just a lame, overworked father. He was a monster toying with life itself. Suddenly, everything clicked. He frantically looked around the room, blinking human heads on poles staring back at him. Green eyes, his sister. Blue eyes, his brother. Closed eyes, his mom. All just staring expectantly. These were meant to be human. William was working down here trying to make believable humans, literally rebuilding the family that they had both lost. The
Sick,
small
dude.
little girl robots
Sick.
with their British accents roaming the hallways of this underground facility suddenly took on a whole new context.
Hello in there. Is this the same person?
Were those meant to be his sister?
That's so
a replacement for her?
creepy, man.
A clone? Was William building clones of his sister? They seemed to know him, after all, to react to his presence.
They were all there. They did.
He has no idea what's going on. Like, he has all this, like, all these things running through his mind. He's trying to figure out what's going on, but he doesn't know that his sister's soul is in that. You know what I mean? He doesn't know that there's paranormal stuff going on.
Didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you.
He always did have a bit of a resemblance to his father. Michael's mind reeled as the reality of his world crumbled to dust. No, he had to get them out of there. If this really was his sister, heck, if any of
Wait,
these
he's gonna free them?
things were human, souls, whatever remnant of the humans that they once
gonna
were,
free
they
them.
needed to be rescued.
Yeah,
They
but they're...
always put us back inside. There's nowhere for us to hide here.
Led by the voice
Are
of
they
Circus
good, though, or
Baby,
are they
he
gonna be
marched through the
monstrous?
now empty halls of the Funtime Auditorium. He would lead them. He would protect them. And finally, he would be
The
able
shield,
to forgive
bruh.
himself for the killing of his brother so many years.
Afton came home? Or did...
You are in the scooping room now.
Also, one of the animatronics
The
murdered
scooper
him.
only hurts for a moment.
The scooper?
Scooper? That violent extraction arm? Michael had seen that one in the pile of blueprints. Something about heat rendering the magical silver metal inside
Remnant,
useless.
yeah.
In reality, prior to getting himself spring-locked and put behind the wall, William's methods had become increasingly sophisticated. With a mechanized arm that could infuse new bodies with a soul, William could finally give and take away life. The only thing he needed were the bodies. But William wasn't the only one looking for bodies, as Michael was about to learn.
But if we looked like you, then we could hide. If we looked like you, then we would have somewhere
Wait.
to go.
They're gonna try to
Michael
possess
was gonna
him?
be the hero to help these animatronics, all right. He was going to help the haunted tubes and wires of these animatronics escape, just not in the way that he anticipated.
He's gonna get
His
possessed.
sister had lied to him. Another game of pretend. The scooper plowed forward, digging its extraction arm into his body. As he heard his bones ripping through his flesh, Michael blacked out.
Excuse me, bro? That is savage. What?
Something is wrong with me. I should be dead,
Wait.
but I'm not.
Oh, did he become a ghost? Was not
For
his
the next several
own.
months,
Because he got
Michael's life
possessed.
was not his own. He was forced to comply with a tangle of wires and spirits that lived inside of him. His
My
body
goodness.
felt like an overfilled balloon.
So there was a
begging
bunch of
to
spirits in
burst
him?
as Day by day,
Look
week
at him.
by week, his flesh began to sag and discolor. He was a
Ew.
walking, talking, rotting corpse, alive, but wishing he wasn't.
Did
He was a
anybody else
puppet,
see
a
this?
walking shell. And while he did his best to conceal his fate, there was only so much a man filled with robot spaghetti could do. The entity in his
spaghetti.
innards would eventually leave, but by that point, the damage had been done. His decaying flesh stank, turning him into a literal purple guy. But
Purple
still,
guy?
even with no bones, even with rotting purple flesh and begging to die, Michael continued to live. That silvery metal remnant injected by the scooper meant that he couldn't die. His
What the hell, bro? So he became purple like his father? Because didn't they call Afton Purple Guy or something in the very beginning? Before you guys knew his name was Afton? And where did the wires go? Did it like just end up on the ground? Did it like
anger also refused to die. What he had seen down there in his sister's location had rocked him to his core. His father had killed and captured dozens. His experiments had killed his sister and then tortured him throughout all his childhood.
Dude,
was
is he gonna
actively
go on a
trying to
murder
build
spree
human
now?
Replicants. He didn't know where his father was, but Michael knew that he was out there somewhere.
he's already
Been
dying?
living in shadow.
He's already dying, dude.
There's only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you.
Michael had to correct for the sins of his father. He had to make things right. Michael would burn Fazbear Entertainment to the ground.
Oh.
I mean, what else could you do when your skin was permanently purple? Michael's strategy was simple. He would apply for night security guard positions at the old defunct pizzeria locations. That way, no one ever had to see him or smell him during his shift. And all these old
Smell
shuttered
him.
locations did need guards. Teenage vandals and squatters were always looking to get inside these abandoned buildings, and yet no one ever really wanted to work an overnight graveyard shift unless they were practically out of options. Enter Mike. One by one, he would take on the job of security guard, changing his name each time to ensure that no one was able to follow his paper trail.
see.
Once inside, he could tamper with the animatronics and figure out how they worked, writing about his experiences in his security logbook. While there, he would listen to the old tapes where upper management awkwardly welcomed new recruits to their summer jobs, even though he was working there nowhere near the summer months. He heard the gory details of his father's franchise from the outsiders looking in, confused and afraid about what was happening in the walls around them. Sometimes he would see his brother in the form of the Golden Freddy suit. It's me appearing on the walls around him. Except now, there was something else there. He was no longer alone. Another angrier presence was also in the suit. As if
What?
two spirits were forced to share the same
evil
body.
spirit?
The Golden Freddy would attack him now. It was aggressive. Its vengeance wanted to lash out at anyone with the Afton name, anyone who wore a security guard outfit.
That's
Over
so
time, Mike worked his
dude.
way through the old restaurants.
That's
the original
terrifying.
Pizzeria, the bigger, better Freddy Fazbear's. He spent weeks there looking for clues as to his father's whereabouts. And each time at the end of his week's shift, he would then set the location on fire. Remnant can't survive high temperatures after.
Right,
So
that's what
burning
they
away
said.
whatever spirit-laden animatronics that still existed inside
Dude, look at the
seemed like a
skull.
winning strategy. All this revisiting of his past, though, was causing the nightmares to begin again. Hallucinations
Great.
that brought him back to his childhood. The guilt around killing his brother. His dreams were oddly mixed with the shrill phone calls of the security guards. But it would all be worth it in the end. The goal was to eventually stumble across the one location, the one job that would finally reunite him with his father.
His
Little
father's
did Mike
dead,
know
though,
that
isn't
that
he?
day would come sooner than he expected.
Right, his father's in the
2023,
suit, isn't
an
he?
advertisement came across Mike's TV. Fazbear Frights, a new horror attraction inspired by the awful crimes that occurred around Freddy Fazbear's Pizza so many years ago.
Hey, gotta
It made Mike
capitalize.
sick. People looking to make a quick buck off the
Yeah,
tragedy of
pretty
others,
much. It's
off
fucked
his
up.
own family. This wasn't a joke or entertainment. Regardless, he had to be a part of it. If this team was combing through his family's history, they might stumble across something that could be useful. And if his
True.
father was truly still alive as he suspected, there would be no way that he wouldn't show up here. Maybe finally, this could be the final chapter in his family's marathon of
His-
tragedy. Mike applied for the job and was immediately handed the keys. Years of doing this had taught him that security guards rarely receive thorough security
Looks
checks.
human.
They also liked how creepy Mike looked. They thought it was a costume.
Oh
On
my
theme for the
goodness,
job,
bro. They
but
can't
little
smell
did
him?
they
Hey, glad you came back for another night. I promise it'll be a lot more interesting this time.
Oh,
For
will
weeks,
it?
there
I'm
was
sure it
nothing,
will
but
be.
Just as Mike considered giving up, he received the call that he'd been waiting for years.
You're not gonna believe this. We found one. A real one.
Could this finally be him? Sure enough, there he was. William inside his iconic golden Bonnie Springlock suit.
There it is.
Now it was green and decaying.
Right, it's
beige.
his years
There they
later,
were,
right?
A small family of broken men finally reunited. It's been a long time, Dad. Mike had always struggled with the phantoms of his past haunting him, but now
Dude.
all the animatronics he'd encountered over the past months, hopping from pizzeria to pizzeria, suddenly sprang to life. Their burned faces haunting him as he tried to keep track of his father on the cameras. It would
What's gonna go down with him and his dad, though? Because didn't he want to get back at his dad? So now they're reunited, but his dad's already dead. He's inside the Fazbear suit.
It seemed that William's mere presence had put the spirits on high alert. Ultimately, they were harmless, more annoying than anything else, but there was one that felt different from the others. One that was more than just a mere phantom. The security puppet. If he looked at the cameras
That
at
thing.
just the right moment, he could see it floating there through the halls. He could even see its reflection in the water pooled on the ground. It would seem like he wasn't the only one there on a mission. While he was dealing with Springtrap, Michael assumed that this one was likely dealing with the spirits of this place, finally setting them to rest.
It used to
Hopefully
keep
this means a
them.
happier
He
day
used to
for
keep
all
the
of us,
kids in.
Mike thought to
Remember?
himself. And in that moment, he felt the air around him release, like pressure being let out of a bottle. The building sighed, as if 5 spirits had finally been allowed to move on. He had the sense that his brother was a part of them. He rigged
Nice.
the wiring inside the building to misfire, and the dry, desiccated walls erupted.
So is William still in there?
It is finished.
Is it though?
Except it was not.
Doesn't he
Somehow, through sheer force of will, Afton
Yo, this
remained.
guy
He
won't
had
fucking
survived,
die, bro.
and Mike would need to find a new way of finishing off his father.
kidding
Luckily,
me?
The solution would present itself later that year. Not from Mike, but from another victim that had been left in his father's wake.
We're talking about becoming a Fazbear Entertainment franchisee. Restaurant ownership and management. Something almost anyone can do with a limited degree of success. You are now the face of the newly rebranded Freddy Fazbear's
Yeah, I don't want to be the
Pizza.
face of
Fazbear
that, bro.
Entertainment as a brand had been closed for years. William had been stuck in a suit and a wall. The only person who legally could bring
Henry.
the franchise back was Henry, but he'd largely pulled out of the franchise around the time of
So
his
who
father's
is it?
disappearance. Something was up. Surely this had to be some kind of a trick, right? Mike, doing what he did best, applied for a franchise and immediately got the job. There was just one thing out of the ordinary. Paragraph 4.
If you are playing this tape, that means that not only have you been checking outside at the end of every shift, as you were instructed to do, but also that you have found something that meets the criteria of your special obligations under paragraph 4.
The
No
fuck?
employment contract he'd ever signed required him to keep special lookout for independently moving animatronics outside the restaurant. Now he knew
Outside of the
something was up
restaurant?
here.
What the f-
Henry was luring them all back. Rather than trying to go to them, like Mike had done for years, Henry was doing the opposite. He was putting them all under the same roof.
For what
He was
reason?
finishing them off for
Oh,
good.
so Henry
Mike
was
knew
getting
this
rid of
wasn't
them.
meant to be a restaurant. It was meant to be a prison, a containment vessel, a locked box meant to trap them all in so they could finally end the madness.
Is that what he's
Took a
really
few
doing?
nights, but eventually everyone was there. His father, the puppet, the robot spaghetti that had once violated his body, and his sister.
So it
now
did get there.
hopelessly devoted to serve the man that had once gotten her killed. It was time. He had been instructed to seal the doors and leave, but while he locked everything down, he didn't move on. If this was truly meant to be the end, if the remnant needed
He
to be
would go
washed
down
away,
his way.
he needed to be a
Yep.
part of that.
Yeah, he had
Where your
to.
story
Yep.
ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you
So this
want.
is Henry
I have a
talking,
feeling
right?
that you are right where you want to be. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace and perhaps more waiting for
Not
you
for
after
William.
the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow
Yeah,
you
dude,
whole.
but he's not going to hell, bro.
Waiting.
Doesn't he turn himself into
That was
code?
over. The Afton legacy died with all of them trapped inside of a literal box. As the flames danced around the
It's not
office,
over.
Mike, for the first time in decades, was happy. But William wasn't gone yet. Although the darkest pit of hell
the
was
hell,
open
dude?
and waiting for him, something or someone wouldn't allow him to move on. Instead, he found
What?
himself locked in moments from his past. The pizzeria, his son's room, his underground bunker. It was as if his brain's neurons were all firing at once, overloaded, mixing and matching all his
The
biggest
security
fears,
guard
regrets,
drone?
failures.
That's
What
what's not
was
letting him
this
move
place?
on?
How did he get here? He called out into the silence.
He's in a computer. He became
Then
code,
they started
dude.
coming. Without warning, animatronics, both new and old, began to jump out at him,
What
bite
the-
him, rip
Oh,
him limb
shit!
from limb. The pain was immeasurable.
Hey, man,
Make
you're
it
getting what you
stop.
deserve,
Make it
dude.
Stop. William, for the first time, longed for
Maybe
death.
this is
an
worse than the
end
pit
to
of
this
hell.
Torture. Just as it felt like he couldn't take it anymore, everything was quiet again. It was as if the world had been reset.
computer got
There was a
turned
brief
off.
moment of quiet, and then the onslaught began again.
Oh, wait, why does it
Dozens
keep
of
going on
faces
and
from his
off?
Past, all focused on him. A waking nightmare that he couldn't escape from. More pain, more ripping. It was his own personal hell. But
Good.
why? Why couldn't he just die?
Good.
And then he saw them. A group of characters he never thought he'd see again.
Oh,
Those
the-
janky, stolen
Yeah,
characters that
dude.
had started everything. The
Henry's.
mediocre melodies.
Yeah.
It all started to go wrong once they showed up. Once Henry had made them. But mixed in with their obnoxious southern drawls, William heard something else. It was barely a whisper, but he could just make out the words.
He tried to release you. He tried to release us. But I'm not gonna let that happen.
Who is
I
this?
will hold you here. I will keep you here,
Who is this kid?
no matter how many times
Is it the youngest
they
son?
burn us.
That voice. He knew that voice, but from where?
The original,
One he should
the
have
daughter?
killed. William thought
Charlie?
he'd done a lot of awful things, but there was always the one that stood out. Not Charlie, his drunken act of revenge. Not
Oh.
Susie, his first true murder.
Who?
No,
Oh, the
instead,
one
it
he
was the
shouldn't
one
have
that he had
killed.
lost control,
Yes,
the
he
one that
said.
had broken beyond repair
Yes,
for
I
no good
forgot
reason
about
other
that.
than because he could. The one that he'd stuffed inside the golden bear that his partner used to wear. Cassidy. They were back, and now they were trying to punish him, to make him suffer like he
Damn,
made
she
them
came
suffer.
back
It
as
was
a
almost like
vengeful
William and
spirit.
Cassidy's souls had been locked together, fused by a collective rage and spite, each refusing
That's
to
a-
move
that's
on. But while
crazy
Cassidy
looking
was
dude.
So focused on taking revenge, they actually did the one thing that would be the downfall for so many others. They kept William alive. Even though fire should have destroyed the remnant that was coursing through his being, Cassidy kept William breathing, paving the way for his escape. William's
Damn,
will was
dude,
so
why?
strong, his soul so powerful that he managed to put a part of himself inside the circuitry that housed the spring-locked suit. And there, his consciousness lay, inside a
And
single
what?
circuit board, waiting
Was it gonna get put into a computer or something?
for someone to find him and set him free. A person that no one would suspect.
Ooh!
Okay, so a bit of a shorter chunk, but an important one as we shift perspectives to Mike and
Seriously, bro? So, I'm wondering if the creators of FNAF, like, just had to retcon certain things, and that's why some of the timeline doesn't match up, right? Pretty interesting to see a father and a son go against each other. William is absolutely evil, man. I'm glad the son ultimately redeemed himself in trying to stop his father and the monsters that his father created. But then it doesn't matter, because Afton ends up surviving thanks to Cassidy. I guess she wants him to continue to suffer, but in turn, helping him survive is gonna help him continue his murderous spree, right? Unless he's not gonna be able to do that from his code world, because he's on a circuit board now, right? So, like, I'm guessing that circuit board's gonna have to go in a computer or something, and somebody apparently finds it. So I wonder who finds it. Maybe it's gonna be Henry. I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts on this part. Are you excited for the fourth and final part of the Ultimate Timeline? As always, thanks for watching, and until next time.